A starving Apache mother with 3 dying children stumbles upon a lonely cowboy's cabin, expecting only cruelty from the white man's world. But Jeremiah Cole carries his own wounds, a wife and daughter lost to fever, and a heart he thought could never feel again. 2 broken souls from enemy worlds discover that mercy speaks louder than hatred. In the unforgiving Arizona desert of 1878, hunger brings them together, but something deeper makes them stay. This is a story of survival, unexpected kindness, and a love that defies everything society says should keep them apart. The sun hung merciless in the Arizona sky, painting the landscape in shades of burnt orange and dusty brown. The year was 1878, and the desert held no kindness for those who wandered its harsh terrain. Pale moon crouched behind a cluster of mesquite bushes, her 3 children pressed against her worn deerskin dress. Her eldest, Running Deer, was 8 summers old now, his dark eyes watching the horizon with a wariness that no child should possess. Little Fawn, just 5 years old, clung to her mother's arm, her small body trembling from exhaustion and hunger. And in Pale Moon's arms, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, lay her youngest, a baby boy she called Morning Star, who had seen only 14 moons in this world. 2 days had passed since they had eaten anything more than a few bitter roots and the last scraps of dried rabbit meat. 2 days since they had fled from the reservation, where soldiers had come with their rifles and their orders, scattering her people like leaves in an autumn wind. Pale Moon's husband, Brave Eagle, had stayed behind to fight, to give his family time to escape. She had heard the gunfire echoing across the canyon walls as she ran with her children into the wilderness. She did not know if he lived or walked now among the spirits. All she knew was that she had to keep moving, had to find food, had to somehow keep her children alive. "Mother," Running Deer whispered, his voice cracked from thirst. "I am so hungry." Pale Moon pulled her son close, pressing her lips to his forehead. "I know, my son. The spirits will provide. We must have faith." But even as she spoke the words, doubt gnawed at her heart. They had wandered far from the trails she knew, desperate to avoid the soldiers who hunted her people. Now they were lost in this unforgiving land, with no food, little water, and no shelter from the relentless sun. Little Fawn began to cry softly, her tears cutting clean tracks through the dust on her cheeks. Morning Star stirred in his mother's arms, his cries weak and pitiful. Pale Moon had no milk left to give him. Her body had nothing left to offer. "We must keep moving," she said, rising on trembling legs. "There may be water ahead, a stream perhaps, or a spring." They walked for what felt like hours, the sun beating down upon them without mercy. Running Deer helped his sister along, half carrying her when her small legs gave out. Pale Moon clutched Morning Star to her chest, singing softly in her native tongue, ancient songs of hope and endurance that her grandmother had taught her long ago. As the afternoon shadows began to lengthen, they came upon a small valley nestled between 2 rocky hills. In the center of the valley stood a modest wooden cabin, its walls weathered by wind and time. A thin curl of gray rose from its chimney, and nearby, a small garden struggled to grow in the arid soil. A well stood beside the cabin, its stone walls promising the sweet relief of water. Pale Moon's heart seized with fear. A white man's home. Such places had brought nothing but sorrow to her people. But she looked at her children, at their cracked lips and hollow cheeks, at the baby growing weaker in her arms, and she knew she had no choice. "Stay here," she told Running Deer, pressing Little Fawn's hand into his. "If anything happens to me, take your sister and run. Do not look back." "Mother, no." "Promise me." Running Deer's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I promise." Pale Moon kissed each of her children, then walked toward the cabin, her heart thundering in her chest. Jeremiah Cole had lived alone in this valley for 3 years now. He had come west to escape the memories that haunted him, the faces of the wife and daughter he had lost to fever back in Missouri. He had thought that the vast emptiness of the Arizona territory might somehow fill the vast emptiness in his soul. It had not, but he had built a life here, simple and solitary. He raised a few chickens, grew what vegetables the stubborn soil would yield, and occasionally rode into the nearest town for supplies. He spoke to his horse more than he spoke to other people, and that suited him just fine. He was mending a fence when he saw her approaching. A native woman, her clothing torn and dirty, her movements slow and unsteady. She carried something in her arms, a bundle wrapped in cloth, and the look on her face was one he recognized, one he had seen in his own reflection in the darkest days after his family had passed. It was the look of someone who had lost everything but refused to stop fighting. Jeremiah set down his tools and walked toward her, his hands held out at his sides to show he meant no harm. The woman stopped a few yards away, her dark eyes watching him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Please," she said, the English word coming slowly, awkwardly from her lips. "My children, they hunger. 2 days, no food." Jeremiah felt something stir in his chest, something he had thought long dead. He looked past the woman and saw them, 2 small figures crouched in the brush, watching with wide, frightened eyes. "How many children?" he asked gently. Pale Moon held up 3 fingers, then looked down at the bundle in her arms. The baby was so quiet, so still. Fear gripped her heart. "Please," she said again, and this time her voice broke. Jeremiah did not hesitate. He turned and walked toward his cabin, gesturing for her to follow. "Come," he said, "bring your young ones. There is food here and water." Pale Moon stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe what she was hearing. Then she turned and called to her children in Apache, her voice cracked with emotion. Running Deer emerged from the brush, carrying little Fawn in his arms. They approached slowly, cautiously, like deer ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. Jeremiah watched them come, and his heart ached at the sight of them. The boy was trying so hard to be brave, his small shoulders squared against a burden too heavy for one so young. The little girl looked half dead with exhaustion and hunger, her eyes too large in her thin face. And the baby, Jeremiah feared the baby might already be beyond saving. He led them into his cabin, a simple structure of rough-hewn wood with a single room that served as kitchen, bedroom, and living space. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, and the smell of beans and cornbread filled the air. He had been preparing his evening meal when he spotted the woman approaching. "Sit," he said, pulling a chair out from the small wooden table. "Rest, I will bring food." Pale Moon sank into the chair, her legs finally giving out beneath her. Running Deer and Little Fawn huddled close to her, their eyes fixed on the pot bubbling over the fire. The smell of cooking food was almost painful after 2 days of empty bellies. Jeremiah ladled beans into wooden bowls, cut thick slices of cornbread, and poured cups of cool water from the bucket he had drawn from the well that morning. He set the food before them and stepped back, giving them space. The children fell upon the food like starving animals, shoveling beans into their mouths with their hands, barely pausing to breathe. Pale Moon ate more slowly, her eyes never leaving Jeremiah's face, watching for any sign of treachery. "The baby," Jeremiah said softly. "May I see?" Pale Moon hesitated, then slowly unwrapped the blanket. Morning Star lay limp in her arms, his breathing shallow, his skin pale beneath its natural copper hue. He was too weak even to cry. Jeremiah's face tightened. He had seen this before, with the calves born too early, or the foals that struggled in their first days. The baby needed nourishment, and quickly, or he would not survive the night. "I have goat milk," he said. "My neighbor, before he moved away, he left me his goat. She still gives milk. It might help the little one." He moved to a covered crock in the corner and ladled fresh milk into a small cup. Then he took a clean cloth, dipped it in the milk, and brought it to Pale Moon. "Like this," he said, demonstrating how to squeeze drops of milk from the cloth. "Let him suck on it. Slowly, a little bit at first." Pale Moon took the cloth with trembling hands and held it to Morning Star's lips. At first, the baby did not respond. Then, slowly, his tiny mouth began to move, drawing the milk from the cloth. He swallowed once, twice, and Pale Moon let out a sob of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." As the evening wore on and the children's bellies filled, their fear began to slowly fade. Little Fawn fell asleep in her mother's lap, her small hand clutching a piece of cornbread. Running Deer fought to keep his eyes open, watching the strange white man who had shown them kindness, trying to understand. Jeremiah sat across from Pale Moon, the firelight dancing between them. He had not asked her where she came from or why she was running. He did not need to. The Arizona territory was full of stories like hers, stories of families torn apart, of people driven from their homes, of children who cried themselves to sleep with empty stomachs. "You have good children," he said finally. "Strong. They are my heart," Pale Moon replied. "All I have left. Their father?" Pale Moon's eyes grew distant. "The soldiers came. He fought so we could run. I do not know if he lives." Jeremiah nodded slowly. He understood loss, the not knowing that was sometimes worse than certainty. He thought of his own wife, of the last time he had held her hand as the fever burned through her. He thought of his daughter, just 6 years old, who had followed her mother into the beyond 3 days later. "I had a family once," he said softly. "A wife, a daughter. They got sick, and I could not save them." Pale Moon looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time she saw not an enemy, not a white man, but simply a human being who had known sorrow. "It is hard," she said, "to keep living when your heart is broken." "It is," Jeremiah agreed, "but we do it anyway, for them, for their memory." They sat in silence for a long moment, two strangers from different worlds, bound together by grief and by the strange, unexpected grace of this meeting. Over the following days, Pale Moon and her children remained at Jeremiah's cabin. He gave them his bed, insisting on sleeping near the hearth. He showed Running Deer how to draw water from the well and taught Little Fawn to gather eggs from the chicken coop. Morning Star grew stronger with each passing day, his cries growing louder, his tiny fists waving in the air. Pale Moon worked alongside Jeremiah in the garden, pulling weeds and watering the struggling plants. Their conversations were simple at first, limited by the barrier of language, but gradually they found ways to communicate. A gesture here, a word there, a shared laugh at some small misunderstanding. And something began to grow between them, something neither had expected or sought. It was not the passionate fire of young love, but something gentler, deeper, a warmth that filled the empty places in both their hearts. One evening, as the sun set behind the western hills, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, Jeremiah found Pale Moon sitting alone outside the cabin, watching the stars emerge one by one. "May I sit?" he asked. She nodded, and he settled beside her on the rough wooden bench. "Your children are wonderful," he said. "You have raised them well." "I try," she said. "It is not easy, alone." "No," Jeremiah agreed, "it is not." He hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent 3 years building walls around his heart, convincing himself that he was better off alone. But this woman, these children, had torn those walls down without even trying. "I know your path is your own," he said slowly, choosing his words with care. "I know you may have a husband waiting for you, that you may wish to return to your people. But if you ever need a place to rest, a home where you and your children would be safe, this door will always be open to you." Pale Moon turned to look at him, her dark eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You would do this? For us? I would do anything," Jeremiah said, and the truth of the words surprised him. "I thought my heart was dead, that I had nothing left to give. But you and your children, you have shown me that is not true. You have shown me that there is still kindness in this world, still hope." Pale Moon reached out and took his hand, her fingers small and calloused against his rough palm. "You are a good man, Jeremiah Cole. I did not believe such men existed among your people." "There is good and bad in all people," Jeremiah said. "Apache, white, it makes no difference. What matters is what we choose to do with the time we have." They sat together in silence, watching the stars wheel overhead, their hands still intertwined. The desert stretched out before them, vast and mysterious, full of danger and beauty in equal measure. Pale Moon stayed. She never found out what happened to brave Eagle, whether he had survived the battle or fallen defending his people. She mourned him in the old ways, singing the songs of passing, offering prayers to the spirits. And when her mourning was done, she looked to the future, to the man who had shown her mercy when she expected only cruelty. They were married in the Apache tradition first, with running deer serving as witness, then again in the way of the white man, in the small church in town where the preacher raised his eyebrows, but spoke the words anyway. Years passed. More children came, brothers and sisters for Running Deer, Little Fawn, and Morning Star. The cabin grew larger, room by room, as their family expanded. The garden flourished under Pale Moon's careful tending, and the valley that had once held only loneliness now echoed with the sounds of laughter and life. There were hard times, of course. There were those who looked at Jeremiah with contempt for loving an Apache woman, and those who looked at Pale Moon with hatred for loving a white man. But they faced those challenges together, side by side, their love a shelter against the storms. And on quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the fire burned low, Jeremiah and Pale Moon would sit together on the bench outside their home, watching the stars emerge one by one, grateful for the strange and wonderful path that had brought them together. The desert had brought them hunger and fear, but it had also brought them love, the most unexpected gift of all.